So let's begin drawing. So I'm looking at my photo and the sky's about 35% of the total area. I'm going to make it bigger, which means I'm going to make the horizon line lower. And then the next really important thing is to see the movement in this painting. And the movement is like we've got the clouds coming down and we've got like, I don't know exactly what it is, but in the sea there's this pattern and it's coming down like this towards the land. It's very important to see the movement in a painting. It doesn't maybe have to have it, I don't know, but if it does have it, it's really good. So we've done that, and so can you see it's like we've almost got this, we've got the clouds coming down like this, and we've got this line coming this way. So it's these lines direct the eye. And I guess this is maybe going to be our focal point. So the line's coming down here, and this line is going to move our eye towards this point here. But it doesn't have to be like that either, because one of my students, she actually made it so that this big rock here in the sea became the focal point. And the way she did that was by the line of the beach came up like this, and then to be honest, I don't know exactly how she did it, but she made it here. So, but it looked good. It looked very good. So you can really change the way things are. You can almost like warp it. So I tend to be, I think, a bit too realistic in my paintings. And I don't think she intended to make that the focal point, but yeah, her focal point ended up being here. But it looked very good. It looked very good. And this would be a good place to have a focal point, because this big rock in the sea is so interesting. It looks like a broken block. It almost looks like man-made. So it's a very interesting object, and the way it's just slightly separate from this big mass makes it very interesting, as well as these little bits around it. They really make it an interesting shape. So you are thinking really, okay, let me say that again. So you are thinking, or you need to be thinking about movement and shapes and interesting shapes, and also one of those shapes being like the focal point of the painting. So don't get caught up in just doing a realistic painting, which might be important, but without a sense of movement within the painting and without interesting shapes and a focal point, it's probably not going to be such a good painting. And you really can play around with things. Yeah, I think this, she made it curve like that. And then she put this up here maybe, but it looked good. So you really can move things in order to make the final image look good. And I think that's it. I think that's our drawing done. And now it's painting time. Maybe there's a few little bits down here. The interesting thing about these little bits down here is they are actually huge. They're huge, big pieces of rock, but because of the scale, they look tiny. Okay. That is a really beautiful sunset. Over there is Kyushu. Can you just see a little bit of land? I'll show you. It's really close compared to this peninsula. Just there in the middle, there's a little bit of land. That's Kyushu. It's that close. But this is a big peninsula coming off this island of Shikoku. So now it's painting time, and the first thing I'm going to do is the sky. I'm going to use a mop brush, and this is a really delicate sky. It's really beautiful. I'm going to begin with yellow ochre. Just try to make sure that your yellow ochre is not dirty. And it needs to be quite watery. So in this corner, I'm doing yellow ochre. And then I add a lot of water to it. Like that. So this is wet on dry. And the reason I'm doing wet on dry is because wet on wet is wonderful, but sometimes you don't get such vibrant colours. It all gets a bit washed out sometimes. Next, I'm using Pyro Red, just pure Pyro Red. And the tricky thing is naturally you just want to cover the whole lot. Like, it's almost like we have it built into us to be like war painters, and we just want to paint the whole lot. But leaving those little gaps is what is so crucial to making a good painting. I've exaggerated this a lot, but I've left lots of lovely gaps here and here and here, and that's so important. Next, cerulean blue. I love this colour. Such a beautiful blue. Now I start off in the corner here where it's going to be quite intense. In fact, I probably can wait a bit because the paper's still too wet. And I can absorb some of the puddles. Oh, there's one pool there. I don't normally get that, but there we go. Okay. So now what I'm really doing is painting wet on wet, because I wet all this paper with paint. And now I'm painting over the top of that. And you have to be careful because it's drying out, and if your brush is full of full of water, very dangerous. You're going to get cauliflowers. So I'm mixing cerulean blue, alizarin crimson, something like alizarin crimson, and yellow ochre. And I'm trying to get a grey colour. And I'm just going to spray this because although it's wet at the top, it's drying out at the bottom, I think. Oh yeah, that's what I wanted, a greyish colour. The wind's really blowing outside. So this is a real pleasant stage. Doing these little bits like this is really enjoyable. As a beginner, this is very difficult at first because getting the right amount of water on your brush or the right mix is very tricky at first and takes a while to develop that kind of sensitivity. But once you do, doing this is almost like meditative. And what I might do down here is blue for some distant island. So this is the island of Shikoku, this island here. If this is an island over here, this is probably Kyushu, which is where I come from. And this particular land mass here is part of a peninsula, and it's actually the most narrow or the narrowest peninsula in Japan. And it extends so far out, it's unbelievable. And at the end of it, you've got a lighthouse. It is actually a little bit of a sort of like beautiful and yet at the same time creepy area, because there's a nuclear power station here and then also these wind turbines, which I never saw, but I could hear them as I was driving along towards the lighthouse. It was kind of a bit eerie, that from, from, but amazing. And the weather just changed so dramatically. Even though you had this beautiful evening sky, it actually became misty as well, and it even rained. So it's very surprising. I think that looks beautiful. Let's leave it to dry. So now I'm doing the sea, and I'm using a round bamboo brush, and I'm trying to create a dry brush effect. I want to suggest that beautiful sparkle across the surface of the sea. It's a little bit difficult. So I do practice on some scrap paper to get the right dry brush effect. So I used cerulean blue and a touch of red, alizarin crimson for this, and a tiny bit of yellow ochre. So I love the surface patterns of the sea. They can be so beautiful, and they're really beautiful in this particular scene. Absolutely amazing. And I love the colors in this scene. This mint green color is so beautiful. So it's not as good as I wanted it to be, but it's not too bad. And I still haven't finished doing it yet. There's a bit more I need to add. Okay, so I'm going to leave that to dry now. I guess one more thing I could do is I could go over all of this except that bit. Except that bit. So get this green, and I could go over all of this. So this will be like a base color. And I don't really have to be super careful with this, just as long as I get the edges correct. And maybe down here, I'll just do this very watery, but I have to be careful because this has now dried, or it's very close to being dry, so I can't really touch that bit. Hopefully I don't. Beautiful colors, right? Really beautiful. And finally, this bit I'm going to do yellow. And I think I'll do just pure yellow for now. See what that looks like. Wow, that's too much. I'll add a touch of cerulean blue. And there's a lot of cerulean blue in this. There we go. Just let that dry now. So now I'm going over the top with a slightly stronger mix. Using my bamboo brush. It creates a lovely effect, but it can be a little bit difficult to achieve. Dry brush takes a lot of practice. Now I'm mixing up some cobalt green. I might add a little bit of cerulean blue and some yellow ochre maybe. I might add phthalo blue actually to darken it, and a touch of alizarin crimson. On scrap paper, I'm just going to check. Yeah, I like that. And here we go. And then lower down, I'm going to do a watery mix of this. There we go. And now leave that to dry. At first, the mist was very spooky, but then it just felt wonderful, really cool and mysterious and beautiful. And the mist is mostly around the land, and when you look out to sea it becomes much clearer. But it's absolutely amazing, the weather around here. It's beautiful. It's really breathtaking. And I just need to breathe in lots of fresh air and just enjoy this atmosphere. So 2 hours, well, about an hour and 30 minutes until I get to the hotel. So I've mixed up a dark green and I'm going to apply it with pointed oval brush. Ooh, I've got a hair. I think I got rid of it. For little details, I'm going to use my bamboo brush. It's got a real nice point. Have to be careful, this is drying out. Just spray it a bit. Okay, we're getting up to this edge now. Ooh. creating an interesting edge here is very important. Although if I darken this later, I'm going to have to do all of this again, but it's not too bad. It's not too much work. So just to let you know, I sell originals and I sell prints for very affordable prices. So please, if you like my paintings, go to my website www.garethnaylor.com/shop, and you will find my originals and also my prints. Mostly paintings of Japan, and I think all of them are of places I've gone to. I rarely paint a place that I've not been to. It does happen occasionally, but not often. Okay, and then maybe get a liner brush. And what will happen now, I'm not sure. Will it be good? I quite like that. It's an interesting texture, right? That's what I'm trying to create here. Okay. And then what I'm going to do is a bit lower down. Some cerulean blue, maybe yellow ochre. Okay, just a few marks. Tricky, but I know I'll get better at it. Maybe today it doesn't work out, but I'm getting better. And one day it will just be amazing. Yeah, I think that looks good, and maybe a little bit darker. Have to be really careful now because that's good enough. Don't touch it. I know, but I think just needs a tiny bit of darkness. Ooh. So I'm squinting my eyes. Yeah, I think that's it. I'm quite happy with that. And then I've got to do this bit, and I've run out of my mix, so hopefully I get something similar to this colour. Okay, I love this rock. It's so interesting, the shape and its position and its relationship to this mass. Yeah, I love these little bits. They really make the thing so much more interesting. Little bits and bobs. And I think that's it for now. Ooh. It became super misty. So I'm going to work on the sea a little bit more. I want to soften it and make it a bit darker down here. Maybe this a bit greener. So I'm going to do a wash. I have to be careful that I don't shift the paint here though. So I'm being very careful. And then adding a little bit of water to this. I love creating this sea surface. And then in the distance maybe soften this. Have to be careful though of this dark area here. I don't want to wet it too much and shift the paint. Just amazing, this view of the sea. I have to go back here again. God knows when that will be though. But anyway, I did get the chance to see it and paint it, and that's something to be really grateful for. So now I think it's time for tissue. Whoops, I didn't want that to happen. And I want to soften this edge. So I'm going to use my small flat brush. It's got very strong hairs, so it will be good for softening this edge because it's quite strong. Not sable hairs, some kind of like, I don't know, like a squirrel hair or something like that. It's probably meant for oil painting, this brush, but it's good for things like this. And I'm just going to wet the whole sky area. I wish my water was cleaner, but should have cleaned it. Just going to soften this a little. I think it's softening. Yeah, I think that's fairly nice. And I've got big hair there. No, thank you. Okay. I think that looks better. Okay, and now I'm going to do this bit. So, definitely some cerulean blue here. Cerulean blue, and then maybe a touch of burnt sienna. That's a colour I haven't used for years and years. Because of my lessons, where I teach I teach, I guess, beginners and sort of semi-advanced students now, because they've been with me for quite a while. But one of the things I did was really limit my palette to make it easier for them. But I also limited my own palette, and I've been using mostly just 6 colours for the last, I'm not sure how long, for years, maybe 3-4 years, maybe longer. I really have no idea how long it's been. And one of the colours I stopped using was burnt sienna. So one of the things I want to do in the future is do 3 or 4 paintings and make one of the colours really dominant, like burnt sienna or yellow ochre, which I love, or cobalt green. I think that'd be really, really fun. I actually did do something a little bit like that. I did this golden sea scene, and I did 2 of them, maybe more, but I sold 2 paintings of that, and they were beautiful. It just looked like gold. I used yellow ochre though, but it looked like gold. It was beautiful. This is looking very nice. I might have to change it though. It's a bit too much like that. Let's add a touch more burnt sienna. Okay, and yep, time to let it dry. I'm not sure what's happening here though. I think I went over. So very carefully, let's remove that. Oh dear. Or blend it in. Okay, it's looking quite nice. Let's leave it to dry. So now I'm going to do a reflection. Well, reflections. Maybe I'll use not mint green. I think it should be called mint green. Cobalt green. It's a nice name. And a touch of burnt sienna. Maybe it needs more blue. Okay, let's see what this looks like. I think that's okay. Okay. And then I think I'm going to do the highlights on here on the cliffs. So I think I'll use yellow, mix it with some of this cobalt green. Let's have a look. With this video you can see nothing, but I'm on a road right next to the sea. Maybe you can hear the waves, and the moon, it's like, oh, what is it? like a crescent moon, and there's this beautiful light, moonlight across the sea, and oh, it's wonderful. And when I look up at the sky, there's so many stars in the sky, and you can't see them with this video, but there's so many. It really is beautiful. So many more than you normally see. Well, I normally see. It's amazing. So now I've mixed up a kind of grey-green mix for here. Could be a bit too strong, so I'm going to water this down. Okay, there we go. And then I'm going to add some highlights. So I'm going to use my white, then add a touch of red and a touch of cerulean blue. Okay, here we go. I'm not so happy with that. Have to go back, finish that off. Hopefully it's okay now. Maybe just make a bit of a thicker mix. Okay, let's go back to doing this. and I realised I need a few dark rocks down here. I forgot about them. So, although these are tiny dots, they're actually really probably big pieces of rock. Yeah, that works. Okay. Yeah, I'm not sure about that. Maybe that's a little bit better. Okay. If it doesn't work, I can always wash it out, try again. Just love these huge rocks. They're so incredible. So impressive. Little touches like this can really make it come to life sometimes. Okay. And I might get rid of that little one there, not such a big deal. And then pure white, I might use titanium white, which is the most opaque white for watercolor. And I will do this bit here. Doesn't really need a lot. So yeah, that really looks nice. I think touch of white maybe here. Ooh. I love this bit here. Okay, and a little bit on this one. Yep. Okay, I think that's quite nice. Except these highlights seem to have disappeared a bit. So even though these little highlights I'm doing are slightly like not matching exactly with the rock, they're a bit off, because they're a nice pattern and because they're only slightly off, it's okay. So finally, maybe a few dark marks. Or, maybe actually a bit lighter, some of this. Mix some yellow. My yellow has gone hard. Mix some yellow with some white. And then see how well this works. So that looks quite good. And then I might do some slightly darker areas. I'm not sure if I should. Yeah. Or maybe I should do some blending. Okay. I'll make a kind of grey colour using cerulean blue, alizarin crimson, and then quite watery, and then try to, yeah, I was going to say blend it in, but not exactly blend in actually. Create just a darker bit. And also I can kind of play with this a little bit maybe. I'm kind of adding more character, more definition, I guess, to the cliff face. But I don't want to overdo it, so I'm just using a slightly watery mix. Yeah, I think that looks nice. But it's good to try these things. Because even if they don't work, you normally learn something, and that makes you a better painter. Yeah, I think I like that. And then maybe over here, these rocks look a tiny bit boring. Oh dear. What are you going to do, Gareth? So okay. Wow. Also, free breakfast, or breakfast included in the price. Maybe it costs, I don't know, 5,000 yen. So maybe that's about what? Is that $50? Is that $50? Yeah, maybe. So about £25 or £20. So maybe less than that. So really, really good price. Good price. So I'm going to try and do some lines coming down here towards this island. I can see that, but seeing is one thing. Managing to paint it is another. Hmm. Okay, maybe that works, maybe. Okay, so finally, lower down, we've got a little bit. This is good, and maybe I should leave it alone. So, but I'm going to try and make a few slightly darker areas. So I'm using mostly cobalt green, but I've mixed in some other colours, just basically some dark stuff, browny stuff on my palette. Okay, take that off. So it has to be painted in a kind of confident way, which is easier said than done sometimes. Sometimes you're in the flow state and you're just not worried at all or hesitant. So I quite like that. Maybe I've done a bit too much. I'm not sure. Ooh, don't like that. So that's what you don't want to happen. And you need a clean tissue very quickly. Oh yeah. It was too long. Yeah, I didn't want that. Okay, and I think that's it. And here is the hotel breakfast. As you can see, it was delicious. At the bottom we've got the miso soup and rice. In the middle, that little red thing is a pickled plum. So very traditional, very Japanese. Then on the right, above the miso soup, we've got some rolled egg and chicken. And then on the left, we've got some bread and some Danish pastries. Oh, and some marmalade to go with the bread. I love marmalade. It was a thoroughly delicious breakfast. So I have to be really careful because sometimes my signature's going up like that. So it can be a bit tricky. I think it's fairly level. Maybe slightly it goes up, but it's passable. So I think that's it. I'm really happy with this painting. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed it. And I'll be back again soon with another watercolor lesson. So please have a go and always enjoy watercolor painting. Bye for now.